Hey guys, Dave here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a playthrough of Shadows of Brimstone, and this is the revised core set and the Swamps of Death, and we are actually going to be diving into the Swamps of Death scenario in here. But one of the neat things that I'm going to be doing in this one is I am going to be using some of the characters that just recently were released. So you will be seeing the Cowboy in here, the Prospector, and the Jargono Native. So I'm going to be running these three characters in this scenario, and I have them already on the starting mat. But what I wanted to do was spend some time in this video to introduce these characters and introduce the scenario, and then in the following videos we're actually going to start playing, and you're going to see the story unfold and how all of these characters are going to interact. So without further ado, let's take a look at these new heroes. Okay, so the first character that I want us to take a look at is the Jargono Native, and in these hero packs you get the both gendered sculpts. So this is the male Jargono Hunter, and you can equip him two ways. He's always going to have this Darkstone blade, but you can either equip him with this tribal shield, or you can give him a bow. But I decided to give him the shield, and it's got pretty good detail. I was a little heavy-handed on the glue because it wasn't sticking very well, but if you could see there, he's got long hair, and these guys need to be painted for sure. You can see the shield in the back looks like it's a shell. And then the female version right here, she has a dagger in her hand, and then she has a quiver with arrows, and then I equipped her with the bow on there. And these were relatively easy to assemble, but you have, those are the two sculpts that you have. And let's take a look at their stat card, because there's some interesting things about this native that makes it very, very cool. So first thing that I need to do is get this into the picture so we can take a look at it right there. Alright, so these are double-sided. So we have the, let me take a look at this side here, even though I'm going to be using the female sculpt in the playthrough. So you can see the Jargono Native, and here are his keywords down here. We have, he's Otherworld, Jargono, and he is Tribal. We look at their stats, and very agile. And he's got some cunning. Spirit is decent. Strength is good. Lore, we're lacking, but you'll see interesting stats about that. And then not very lucky. And initiative is 4, so he's kind of quick, but not super, super fast. Now, there are some abilities here, and then I wanted to talk about. So we have this Hunter's Reflexes. So you are +1 damage on all your attacks against beast enemies, and also you gain +2 initiative in the first turn of an ambush attack. So if we're ambushed, this is he's actually pretty good. He might be able to strike first, depending upon what the initiative is on some of the things that will be jumping out at us. Now, being primitive, they can't use guns, books, or tech items, so it's going to limit some of the items that the native will be able to carry. But here is the interesting thing. This Otherworld native, where it says Jargono, starts with a Swamps of Jargono personal item instead of a normal personal item. Also +3 lore while in the Swamps of Jargono Otherworld, which is where we're going to be venturing into. Now, it comes with these personal items that are specific for the Swamps of Jargono. And there's some cool things here. Let's take a look at these. So you could have a tribal tattoos. It's going to give you +1 strength, and you always get defense rolls, even against hits that would normally ignore defense. So this would be nice to be able to have randomly drawn. Or we have a Heritage Charm, and +1 luck, +1 spirit. Once per turn when you pass a skill test, you can heal D3 wounds or sanity, any mix. That's pretty good. The Relic Stone, +1 lore, and then once per turn you may re-roll a single willpower roll. So this is good for trying to protect your sanity. And we also have the Serpent Skin Loincloth, +1 agility, and once per turn may re-roll a single defense or armor roll. That's pretty good. And then there is this Raptor Tooth Necklace, +1 cunning, and once per turn you can allow a single one of your hits to ignore a target's tough, endurance, or armor ability. So that's pretty good as well. So the rest of their stats on here, if we look at the bottom, ranged 5+, melee 4+, kind of standard like a lot of your other characters. Health is 11, sanity is 11, and then 4+ for defense and willpower. So not bad stats there either. Now, when we look at their starting gear, typically this says it starts off with a tribal shield and a darkstone blade. So here's the tribal shield, armor 5+. Notice it is tribal only. So this is something that also the Indian Scout could use in the Swamps of Death set, so that's pretty cool. And we have Darkstone daggers. This is a Darkstone item, and +2 combat, +1 initiative. Requires both hands, and again, tribal only. We have the Darkstone Blade, which is again another Darkstone item, and your combat hits are critical hits on the rolls of 5 or 6 instead of only 6. So a little bit of a beefier weapon. And then we have the Jargono Bow, which is good. This is a two-handed weapon. Range of 7, gets 1 shot, and critical hit on 5 or 6, and then you're going to use the D8 for damage. So those are some, depending upon what you choose for your starting abilities, are going to determine some of these things that you may have. So if I move this out of the way, and we take a look at the first one that we could possibly get, is the Treetop Hunter. So you're going to make your to hit ranged 4+ instead of 5+, and you get a double shot. You're going to replace the tribal shield with the bow. And you got this double shot ability. Once per turn, when you kill an enemy with a bow, you gain +1 shot with that bow. It's really similar to the Lawman in the City of the Ancients, where if you choose the one skill, if he kills somebody, he gets to do another shot right away. So similar to that. But this is pretty good if you're going to want to use that bow, which is good for damage. Now we have the Serpent Slayer is another thing you can choose. Your +1 move and may move through other models. You are also immune to poison markers. So depending upon what kind of enemies you're going to possibly be facing, this is something that you may want to choose. You're going to replace the Tribal Shield and the Darkstone Blade with Darkstone Daggers. So it's at to trade off of losing the armor and that other Darkstone Blade, but you are going to have those daggers that are going to give you +2 combat and then +1 initiative, which is kind of neat. And then finally, the last one here is the Pit Fighter. And if you start your activation adjacent to one or more enemies, recover a grit on the D6 roll of 5+. Also, once per turn, while you have a shield equipped, you may force one enemy hit just rolled against you to be re-rolled. So, interesting starting abilities. And then the last thing that I wanted to do was take a look at their upgrade chart. So let me pull that out. So we look at this, and I'll try to pan out the camera a little bit, but this is the interesting thing here when you start getting your upgrade bonuses. A lot of these are the same as other characters, but we have this fighting style. If you roll a 2, choose a specific enemy type. And from now on, you take 1 less damage from any attack made by an enemy of that type, minimum of 1. So, if you choose, if you're going to be playing in the Swamps of Death, and you really don't like the Hellbats, you can choose that as a type, and so anytime that you encounter them, if they are, you're going to take 1 less damage from an attack that's made by them. But let's take a look at their upgrade chart. So this Jargono Native has interesting paths that you can go down as your character levels up, and it's going to depend on what your end goal is with this character. But if you look at just the Jargono path, if you travel down this is interesting. So you start off with your stealth strike, so you choose this like once you get to level 2 or whatever. Your critical hits are +1 damage, and you are +1 to all escape rolls, and you get +1 agility. Well, he already has a base agility of 4, so it's going to make him even more agile. And this is really good with your critical hits are +1 damage. And especially when you have some of those weapons or things that are going to give you a critical hit on a 5 or 6. So that's going to bump you up. And then the other thing is now you get this fungus grower. You gain 1 swamp fungus side bag token at the start of each adventure. And these swamp fungus tokens, you may be familiar with them because they've been around before. But when you use one of these, you can heal your D6, I think it's sanity and health. So that's a really, really good side bag item. So at the beginning of each adventure, you're going to get one in addition to whatever other side bag token that you will choose. If you progress from there, Tribal Warrior, you are +2 health for each tribal item you have, so a maximum of 10. So if you start collecting tribal items or you're trading with your opponents, if they're finding artifacts or different things, this could bump your health up and make you even stronger. Be able to have, be able to fight more. And then finally, we have this Ancestor's Favor. Whenever you kill a large or bigger enemy, you may move the darkness back 1 space on the depth track. It does not trigger special spaces moved back through. So if we're going back on the darkness track, it's not going to, just because you go over, it's not going to trigger again. And then it gives you +1 spirit. So that's good. Now, the path that kind of intrigues me the best here, I like this Gladiator, which is the next path here. Battle stance: whenever 1 or more enemy groups are placed in ambush, you recover 1 grit and you get +1 strength. Well, a lot of times, especially in the swamps of Jargono, I think all the encounters are considered ambush. I have to read the rules for that particular world. So this is going to be something that would be good while in the swamps in particular. Then this Shield Bash, when you have a shield equipped, you are +1 combat, +1 max grit. Again, with the shield now, you have a shield charge. Use 1 grit while you have a shield equipped to move through other models. This turn, each model moved through takes 2 wounds, ignoring defense. Limit once per model. And then we have the Honored Champion, melee to hit 3+. So once he gets up pretty strong, melee 3 or plus, that's really good if you just want to go up and bash somebody. Then we have this Ferocity, jumping attack. Once per fight, you may spend unused movement points from your move to add damage to one of your combat hits. So every 2 moves equals +1 damage. So that's really cool. If you rolled a 6 for movement and you decided you did not want to move, you could use all 6 of that, so that would give you +3 damage on an attack. So that would be good on one of your combat hits. Then we have the Spinning Slash. Well, you have a 2-handed item, hand weapon equipped. You are +1 damage with combat hits and +1 initiative. So that would be really, really good with these Darkstone daggers. So if you go down, if you decide to choose that you're going to be a Serpent Slayer as your starting thing, where you get the daggers, and then you decide to go down this Ferocity attack, once you get up a couple levels, that Spinning Slash is pretty cool. And again, +1 initiative. It's going to, get you into the fight quicker than a lot of the other enemies, and even some of the people that are in your posse. Then we go on there, Mighty Swing, +1 combat and +1 strength. That's really good. And then Fury of Jargono. Once per fight, use 2 grit to make an extra attack. This activation, +2 max grit. So that's, if you end up, you can stockpile some grit here and use that, and then getting extra attacks that just might be able to turn the tide, be able to finish off an enemy just by using some grit there. And then finally we have this hunting and tracking. So the enemy tracked once per adventure. Use 1 grit to switch attack or ambush on an exploration token into 2 encounters. So once per adventure, use 1 grit to switch the attack or ambush on an exploration token into 2 encounters instead. The rest of the token remains the same. So that's good, especially like an ambush. You don't really want to have enemies on top of you. So you can choose to basically defeat that ambush thing and just make it as 2 regular encounters. And then we have this quick shot. You may add +1 shot to any bow you are using. +1 initiative and +1 agility. So that's pretty cool with the Jargono bow. Instead of having 1 shot, you could have 2 shots. So potentially you could deal a lot more damage. Then we have this deep cuts. You may double the endurance value of any enemy while attacking it, and you get +1 strength. And then finally we have Master of the Hunt. You gain +2 combat and +2 shots with any bow you are using while there are 1 or more extra large or bigger enemies on the board. So that makes this really interesting. Once you get him beefed up, he's going to be a lot stronger against your larger enemies that are on the board. So lots of variety as to the path that you want to take with this Jargono Native. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he is going to be in this particular adventure. All right, next up we have the Prospector. And again, we have both genders on the sculpts. Let's take a look at these. So here's the guy. He's got really good detail. In fact, I think he's like one of my favorite sculpts to look at. Here he is with the pickaxe, and he's got all of his gear, and then he's got a roll pack that's on the back. Really easy to assemble. I believe with this one, you just had to clip him and you had to glue on the roll pack, but he looks really good. This is probably one of my favorites in terms of the look for that sculpt. Even look up in that face, like his beard, and he's got that kind of like that worn face, the weathered hat. Everything about him looks really good. Let's look at the female here, and she looks like a stern woman. And again, she's got this big giant pickaxe. So, you know, nothing says stay away than a woman wearing a dress with a pickaxe. And she's got that nice long braid in the back. So really nice looking sculpt for these guys here, the Prospector. Anyways, let's pull out his stat card and take a look at what that says. So we'll put the girl out here on this side. So we look at her. Now, keyword is frontier. And here we look at the stats, and some of the things are kind of low. Especially agility. Not very agile at all with 1. This thing's going to be tripping up all over the place. Cunning and spirit are 2, but we've got a 4 strength, 3 lore, and 3 luck. So those are decent stats, but initiative of 2, not going to be the first one in the fight by a long shot. So we look at their abilities, and we've got this crotchety. This crotchety person may not use guns or tech items. So this is going to be very interesting between the Jargono Native and the Prospector in the same party, and neither one of them can use guns or tech items. So this is going to, I think this is going to play out. We'll see how things go. I'm not too concerned about finding tech items in the swamps, but you never know. We have this Expert Miner. Whenever the hero collects gold or darkstone from a loot, scavenge, or encounter card, double the amount collected. So this guy is going to be like a treasure hoarder. So when we're looting, scavenging, you want the Prospector to be the one who's doing the scavenging, hopefully, and finding the stuff. And then anytime that they're collecting stuff, it's going to be double. And this is really cool. Death Blow. The hero's to hit rolls of 8+. Double the damage rolled for that hit. Note that this is only usable for weapons that use the D8 to hit rolls. So I believe that his heavy pickaxe has that, and then also comes with the Miner's Canteen. We'll take a look at those cards in a little bit. And then we have to hit and melee are pretty much standard fare. This, though, beefy character. May not be very agile, but can take a beating. 16 health and a 14 sanity. Now it's going to be a little bit easier for them to resist their defense rolls. A little tougher with the willpower for the sanity, but still some interesting. I like these stats quite a bit with this. So let's take a look at the abilities and all that stuff for the Prospector. Alright, so these are the starting items that the Prospector starts off with. So you have the heavy pickaxe, and your melee attacks use the D8 to hit. 6, 7, or 8 count as critical hits. Really, really awesome. And your combat hits are +1 damage. Now, it's a two-handed weapon, and it requires strength of 4 or higher to use. Well, the Prospector has a strength of 4, but if you have an injury or something that's going to cause you to lose strength, that could be bad because it could basically knock you out and you would not be able to use this heavy pickaxe. So the death blow is going to pretty much go away unless there's something else where you're going to be able to use a D8 for your rolls. But while he's got it, pretty awesome because the fact that a 6, 7, or 8 count as a critical hit. And then we've got the Miner's Canteen. Now this is limited to Frontier heroes only, so I think the Frontier Doc would be one. I don't have him. But this is interesting. So once per adventure, heal 2d6 wounds or 2d6 sanity damage. So a quick way to get a boost without having to use like a revive token. So the interesting items that come with the Prospector. And then we've got the three different pathways to go down for him to start off the game. So we'll look at the first one here. The Blast Miner, and start every adventure with 1 free dynamite token in your side bag, and you also gain a free attack once per fight where you can throw dynamite. So if you just want to have this guy going around trying to blow up stuff, this is an interesting way for you to go around. It'd be interesting to see him with the dynamite along with the Bandito. So kind of interesting pathway to choose if you want to use dynamite in your attacks. We have the Speed of Greed. Once per turn, use 1 grit to double your initiative and move, as well as allowing you to automatically pass all escape tests. Also, your combat hits are +1 damage until the end of that turn. So you'd have to use grit to be able to do this. But it's interesting because you can double your initiative, so you can make you a 4 and your move, and be able to escape. And then your combat rolls are +1 damage, so that would really be good if you can deal with a critical hit with the heavy pickaxe. Then you'd be able to get an additional damage in there, especially if it's going to go straight in. And then this one here, if you're into the scavenging thing, the Eagle Eye, roll 1 extra die when scavenging, and you may scavenge each map tile 1 more time than is normally allowed. So this guy can go and get loot and all these other good things, and again, with his ability of the Expert Miner, a lot of times he can double stuff. So this guy, this Eagle Eye will allow him to amass bigger amounts of money, but also Darkstone, potentially. So could have mutations and things happen, but interesting for these starting things, which pathway we're going to go. It's going to be, I'm not sure what we'll see what the Prospector is going to choose for this, but again, 3 different paths for the Prospector to go down, and let's take a look at their upgrade chart. So the first thing is their upgrade bonus, and again, they're probably the same, most of these down the way, although we've got Darkstone resistance here. You can now hold 2 more corruption points before getting a mutation. So that's pretty good. And then down up here, Miner's Vendetta. Choose an enemy keyword. And from now on, anytime you collect XP from those enemies, you collect an extra 10 XP. So this could help you with leveling up. But let's take a look at the flow charts. All right, so here we go on the Prospector's upgrade chart. Now this is I like this. Again, some of these things are really, really cool. But we have Unhinged. So you have the impressive facial hair. So you saw that beard on there. Maybe not so much for the female one, but once per adventure, you may tug at your facial hair to recover grit up to your max grit. So that's pretty neat, especially if you continue down this pathway, you're going to get additional max grit. So this could, later on, if you go down this pathway, you can do that, be able to get all of your grit back. Now, this is an interesting thing here. It's crazed. While at half or less sanity, your attacks are +1 damage. Well, you have to realize here that he's got a sanity of 14, so even if he goes down to like 7 sanity, which is still like quite a bit, +1 damage, and you get +1 max grit. So this is going to, there's going to be like an incentive to sort of have him into fights where you're going to take like the horror, like the horrific creatures and stuff like that, get him to be in the fight or adjacent to those enemies at the beginning of their turn where they're taking horror hits and potentially, you know, not get the willpower saves, to be able to get the sanity down to make him crazy, basically. Then we've got this gold fever. During an adventure once per turn when you're collecting gold, you may recover 1 grit. That's not bad. And then Darkstone Life, your attacks are +1 damage for every mutation you have for a maximum of 3, +1 max grit. So because of the fact that you can get a lot of Darkstone and you can mutate and stuff like that, this is going to make it interesting for you to be harboring all those mutations. Now, we've got the Scavenger Path, and you may now scavenge end caps as though they were full map tiles. Not including the gates, though. But still, if you go into a room that has a couple of gates on there, you can go ahead and scavenge those things. So again, a great way to use the expert miner ability of the character to be able to double up and get some things. Then you've got a +1 move. So that's good. And then Lucky Bugger, when using your expert miner ability, you may make a luck 6+ test, and if you pass it, triple the amount collected instead, and then +1 luck. So we've got a 3 luck, it would go up to a 4 there. But this, if you can pass a luck test and you have a luck of 3, so you're going to roll 3 dice minimum, you can triple the amount of stuff that you can get. So you can definitely go loot heavy on this one. The Squint Eye, once per turn after drawing a gear or artifact card, you may discard it and redraw it. +1 max grit. So nice way to kind of mill through some of the cards. And then Master Scavenger. After scavenging, you may spend 1 grit to set aside a scavenge card drawn. That card is removed from the deck until the end of the adventure limit. 4 cards total may be removed. This is a great way to get rid of those bad things so you can make scavenging more lucrative for yourself as well as your posse. Now, on the mining front here, we've got Good Find. After any hero in the hero posse collects gold from a loot or scavenge card, they may collect an extra $25. So that's good to help the party out. +1 max grit. Staking claims once per adventure, you may cancel and redraw an exploration token. That would be really good, especially if you get that one where it's like you make the darkness go, or the darkness automatically moves. Get rid of that. And then also when selling a gear or artifact card in town, you gain an extra D6 times $50. So if you can roll a 6 on there, that's an extra $300 that you can make while selling items in the town. And then just a good old buff right here, Hardy Swing, +1 combat, +1 agility. So that would help out, especially the fact that the Prospector is not very agile. And then we've got this Mining Guide. Once per turn when holding the lantern, you may spend 1 grit to re-roll 1 of the dice for the Hold Back the Darkness roll. That's very, very helpful as well. So, you know, again, these characters they get stronger as they progress. And then we have got the Claim Jumper. This is the last pathway. You may buy side bag tokens in town for half price, rounded up to the nearest $5. So that's pretty good. +1 initiative. Greedy, when drawing loot cards, you may spend 1 grit to discard and redraw any number of them, +1 max grit. So this is a good way to get better loot. Then this is interesting. It's mine. You gain the keyword outlaw and may now use shotgun ranged weapons in +1 initiative. I think that it's almost going to be interesting to go down the Claim Jumper and then team him up with the Lawman and get that. I don't know if that Lawman, no, I don't think that he can use that, but you need to get a really cool gun that can use a D8 so that he can get that death blow. And then we have the all mine. So when you're carrying 4 weighted items or more worth of items, you are defense +3. So it makes you stronger to resist fighting stuff. So I really, really like the Prospector. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this one is going to play out during the adventure as well. So finally, let's take a look at the Cowboy. And finally, we have the Cowboy and Cowgirl. Because what would a Western-themed game be without a cowboy? And I'm actually surprised that it took a hero pack to actually have the character in here. But let's take a look at the sculpt. So here is the Cowboy. And I like his detail there. He looks pretty good holding out the gun. This one was relatively easy to assemble. I think we just glued his arm on. You can see a little bit of residue there from the plastic cement. And he's holding a lasso in his arm. You see that nice detail on that rope. So that should paint up probably really good. And you said to glue his hat. I think he had to glue his head on. I can't remember. He's got the nice typical bootcut pants on there. He's got his holster slung down by the side. He looks alright. And the girl, she's also, oops, let me get that focused in there. She's also holding a lasso in her hand, more along to her side. She's got the pointed gun out there. She's got a pretty good detail on her face too. So I think they did a nice job with the sculpts on these. I'm trying to remember if that's her hand glued on there. Whoops. Well, it's not exactly the best in terms of the where you clip it on there to glue, but she's held on there. And we just, if I need to, I can fill that back in. Unless it's just, no, it might be just her forearm with her glove, with her jacket. So, anyways, she looks pretty good. Let's take a look at their stat card. So here we go with the Cowboy, and we look, his keywords are frontier and a showman, so that's interesting. Agility 2, cunning 3, spirit of 1, low spirit. Strength of 4, lore of 3, luck of 2. I would have thought that his luck would have been a little bit better. And then he's got an initiative of 3. Down here we look real quick. His range is 4+, so he's better than some of the other characters in terms of ranged stuff. Melee is 4+ also. And compared to the Jargono Native and the Prospector, those are both 5+ with ranged. We have the abilities, the Rough Rider. So at the start of each turn or a day in town, if you have no grit, recover 1 grit on the D6 roll of 4+. So this guy could potentially have grit every turn. You could spend it and then, recover it if the dice roll good. And then we have this Happy Trails, and this is once per travel. You may spend 1 grit to cancel a travel hazard on the D6 roll of 3+ before any tests are made for that travel hazard. So pretty much between adventures, when you're going to the town and stuff like that, this is where this character is going to shine that way. And we've got a health of 14 and a sanity of 12, so kind of a beefy character with 4+ for both the strength and willpower saves. So not bad stats. The spirit, though, is going to be bad, so when you have to make a spirit test, he's going to have to rely heavily on luck or reusing the grit to re-roll for some of those tests. Initiative of 3, I wish it was a little bit higher, but we're still okay. We look at the starting items on here is a pistol, a lasso, and a bandana. So here's the lasso. Cowboy only. There's a lot of text on here, so I'll just read it real quick. But once per fight at any time, choose an enemy within range of 5 and line of sight to rope with the lasso. While roped, that enemy may not move and is -1 combat and -1 defense. So he can use the rope tied up. Other players can damage him. At the start of each of that enemy's activations, make a strength 5+ test to keep it roped. or 6+ if large, or 6+ with 2 successes if extra large or bigger. Enemies with an ability that lets them move through other models automatically break free. If passed, the enemy remains roped. If failed, it's released. So you can only have one lasso, Cowboy only. So he's the only one that can use this lasso. But it's an interesting way you can use the Cowboy as a support person in trying to take down some of the other enemies. We have the bandana. So once per turn you may re-roll an escape test. That's pretty good if you need to get out of a fight. And we have a pistol with a range of 6 and 2 shots. Has a couple of upgrade slots. So you just have, just your regular trusty old gun. Now, there is one other equipment card that we will get to in just a moment. But we'll take a look at their 3 starting abilities, if you will. So we can look at the, you can be a watchman. So you will always activate before enemies at your initiative level. And also all heroes in your posse gain +2 initiative during the first turn of an ambush attack. This is going to be really, really helpful, especially in the swamps of Jargono with the ambushing. Because if I recall, let me look, once we get into Jargono, I believe that it says on their card that any attack is an ambush attack on the d6 roll of 1, 2, or 3. So we have a higher chance of being ambushed, so this is actually going to be good for being able to potentially get an attack in before the enemies do, or at least even the playing field. And it says an extra starting gear, you get the rider's rifle, which replaces the pistol. Well, the rider's rifle has a range of 10 and has 2 shots, so you can pick off enemies from far away. And it says use 1 grit to gain plus D3 shots, limit once per attack. So this would allow you to, you already get 2 shots, to be able to pump off some more things and be able to pick off enemies from a farther distance. So you have the Watchman. You have the Daredevil. You are +2 move. All of your attacks on adjacent large size or bigger enemies are +1 damage. So if you want to go up there and start taking out the bigger baddies, get right up next to them and do melee, then you're going to get +1 damage. Or, I like this one, the trick shooting. Use 1 grit when you cause a hit with a gun to immediately cause an additional D3 other enemies in a continuous chain starting adjacent to the target to also take a single hit from that gun. So potentially you could have 3 other enemies also take a hit. So that is very, very interesting. And I think that the Cowboy is probably going to end up doing this just for the simple fact that we can potentially, get the hits on enemies when they're further away. So interesting things here. I like the, some interesting paths between the Watchman and the trick shooting. Those are pretty cool. Both of these would be useful in this particular scenario that we're going to be going through. And let's finally take a look at his upgrade chart. So we have the first one is the Frontier Vendetta. And again, this is going to be similar to the Prospector. You're going to choose an enemy type, and whenever you collect XP, you're going to get additional 10. So I think they just changed the words on there. But anyways, let's take a look at the flowchart. So here we go with the different paths. We'll start over here on the range. Living off the land, you gain double XP from scavenge cards and may roll 1 extra die when scavenging. Also, for each scavenge card drawn, heal 1 wound or sanity. So between him and the Prospector, if they're successful at scavenging, both of them are going to benefit from it. We also have the Frontier Rivals, and you are now +1 damage on all attacks versus tribal, outlaw, or beast enemies, and gain plus 25 XP for each one you kill, +1 max grit. Well, this would be interesting, especially with like some of the tribal things in the swamps of Jargono. And then we have Close Companion. While you have a transport animal, and it must be named, you are willpower 3+. So your companion animal gives you like your emotional support thing to be able to resist and keep your sanity. And then we have the Wilderness Mastered. While you have 4 or more clothing items equipped, including a hat, you are defense of 3+. And then we have the Cowboy upgrade here of the Thrill Seeker. Living on the edge. While you are at half or less of either your health or sanity, your Rough Rider ability triggers on 3+, or 2+ if both. So the Rough Rider is for you to be able to recover grit. So that's pretty cool. Brash Heroic. Once per fight, use 1 grit to do D6 wounds, ignoring defense to both yourself and one adjacent enemy, plus 3 health. So basically, if you rolled a 6, you could potentially knock yourself out, but dealing 6 wounds to your enemy if your health was low. And then the Deadlier the Better, +1 max grit, +1 strength. And then Who Wants to Live Forever, you gain +2 shots with a single-handed gun, or +2 combat. You choose during your activation for every honor or every horror hit you took from fear, terror, or unspeakable terror this turn. So maximum +3. So that's it's interesting. This would be really against some of those things like the night terrors. If you're running up against those, or some of these other like horrific creatures, this would be for you to be able to get additional combat. An interesting choice, but this is going to take a while to upgrade. Fisticuffs, take a swing once per turn, use 1 grit to make a melee attack using your basic combat, no items, in addition to your normal ranged attack. I like that, but you're going to have to be using your grit. Bar Fight Vet, +1 combat and +1 strength and +1 move. Nice buff right here. Sucker Punch, once per turn, use 1 grit to use your strength value instead of rolling as damage for a combat hit, and +1 max grit. Well, right now his strength is +4, but right before that you get a +1 strength, so that puts you at 5. So you could potentially do that, and then you get +1 max grit. And then we have the Pale Rider. You may now use your Rough Rider ability to recover grit as long as you only have 0 or 1 grit at the start of the turn, and it may be used even while KO'd. It's kind of cool. And then finally, Show Off, and I like this, some of these things that are on here. Fancy Roping. Anytime you rope an enemy with the lasso, gain 10 XP. Also recover a grit on the D6 roll of 4+, and you get +1 initiative. And we get another something with the roping. Fast Return. You may now use the lasso up to twice per fight, but only 1 enemy may be roped at a time, and +1 agility. So if you miss with 1, you potentially could rope another one. And then Shake It Off. At the end of any turn while KO'd, use 2 grit to recover without rolling for injury, madness, and then heal 2d6 any mix as normal, +1 strength. Again, another thing where you potentially could use your grit to and to be able to make a recovery without any lasting consequences. And the other thing with this is you will not have to use Revive Token. And then finally we have Giddy Up, and once per fight use grit to mount an adjacent large or bigger enemy, gaining its full, basically, what does it say? Sharing its full base. While mounted, you may not be targeted by that enemy, and the enemy is -1 defense. At the end of each turn, pass a Strength 6+ test, gaining 25 XP, or dismount to an adjacent empty space. So you can basically try to get out there and ride something like this. So if you can imagine, especially in the swamps of Jargono, I don't have one, but can you imagine him getting up on a swamp raptor and taking that for a ride? So anyways, I wanted to spend the time to go over each of these characters with you to see their potential for playing, and hopefully we'll see them, I'm sure we'll see them at least upgrade 1 level through this adventure. At least that's what I'm hoping for with the XP. and stuff to see how these are going to play out. But I thought that it would be exciting to play this scenario using these three starting characters. So we'll just bring this tile out here, and we'll start off with our Prospector and our Cowboy, and we'll use the Jargono Native, and we'll get this scenario set up. Alright, so before we get into everybody's starting abilities and what they've all selected, let's set the mood here for this. We're going to be doing the Swamps of Death mission number 4, which is called Swamps of Death. So let's read here. Rumors have been swirling that a mine has been found with a stable gateway leading to another dimension, a murky swamp world overrun with giant insects and man-eating plants, as well as the sunken ruins of ancient primitive cultures. There are tales of half-sunken temples filled with gold, and springs with magical healing properties, a fountain of youth hidden away in the deep parts of the swamp. Of course, there are also stories of vicious serpent-men tribes and massive reptilian creatures that stalk the thick, swampy forests. But for a chance at riches and immortality, it could just be worth the risk. Okay, so this particular mission, and we'll get into our characters and their names and the story behind how this Jargono Native got to be with this group. We'll get into that shortly, but the mission uses the standard setup, and all heroes start on the mine entrance map tile as normal, which is where they are. Now the mission goal says find a gate that leads to the murky and overgrown swamps of Jargono and hunt down a magical spring or cache of temple treasures. And at this point, we're just going to say that we need to find this spring so this Jargono Native can find her way back into her tribe from where she originally came. And once in the swamps of Jargono, the heroes must find 2 clue icons to discover a hidden spring or temple and successfully complete the mission. Now, there are a couple of special rules. All gates lead to Jargono. So all the gates in this adventure lead to the swamps of Jargono. Even gates found in Jargono, they lead to a different part of the swamp. And we have mine clues at a gate. So any clue token the heroes find in the mines automatically has a gate in that room in addition to any other doors. Place this gate before the doors. And then the objective is when the heroes find the second clue icon in the swamps of Jargono, they have reached the objective for exploring this other world. Ignore any attacks or encounters listed on the final exploration token. Also ignore any door or gate icons on the token, as the objective room has no exits. Reveal all the Growing Dread cards in the stack as normal, and then the heroes must face an epic threat. Remember that at any time a normal threat card, low, medium, or high, would be drawn in an otherworld threat card is drawn instead, and once all enemies have been defeated, heroes have successfully completed the mission, and then they're going to gain rewards, and then there's also bad things happen if they fail. So if we reward, we get 25 XP and also roll a d6 for the group, and in the roll of 1, 2, or 3, the heroes have discovered a magical wellspring with healing properties. Each hero may either gain 1 to their health or automatically heal 1 injury, madness, or mutation, or discard a parasite card. On the roll of 4, 5, or 6, the heroes have found a half-sunken temple ruin, and each hero recovers enough gold trinkets that they can sell for apparel die times $50. So I guess we'll somehow change this narrative with the character as we go in the story. If we fail, though, lost in the deadly swamps, the heroes are relentlessly bitten by alien insects and torn at by barbed vines and thick mud. Each hero must roll a d6. On the roll of 1, the hero falls ill due to disease spread by the insects. The hero loses 1 health permanently. And on the roll of 2, 3, or 4, the hero must discard $100 and D3 Darkstone or 1 item lost to the muddy waters of the swamp. And on the roll of 5 or 6, the hero emerges unscathed. Now, a couple of things that I did add to the Swamps of Death to make it more thematic are, I did add a couple of enemies. So we will have the Serpent Men Warriors, and there's also the Serpent Men Shaman that's in there. So these are going to be interesting. And then we also have the Swamp Slugs to deal with. So as we come across those will be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, they have been added to the, their stuff has been added to the decks. So, without further ado, let's get a chance to know our characters. Alright, so our first character, the Jargono Native, her name is Juva, J-U-V-A, and she has chosen to be a treetop hunter. So to hit range now is 4+, so that's good. And then she's got that double shot, and so the tribal shield is out, and she gets this Jargono bow. So it's a two-handed weapon, and then she also has her Darkstone blade, so she does have one Darkstone item with her. And we have her Jargono starting item is this Heritage Charm that gives her +1 luck, +1 spirit, and once per turn when I pass a skill test, I may heal D3 wounds or sanity of any mix. And then also an interesting thing with the Jargono Native is they can choose to start with a swamp fungus in their side bag. So instead of the normal things, they're going to choose this. Now, Juva had somehow gone through the gate, and the Prospector had found her wandering in the mine. They somehow learned to be able to communicate with each other, and in exchange for helping Juva get back, the Prospector is going to help her. She agreed to take him to a place where he would be able to find something of value, because she could tell that he liked gold, he liked to have things, and so she decided that she will help them along the way. You know, she's going to exchange, basically I will take her somewhere valuable in exchange for getting her back through to her native world. So this is Juva and what she's going to be starting off with. Alright, here's our Prospector Ezra. Now, Ezra has been mining ever since he was a child. His father was a prospector as well, and he's got this taste and this thirst for gold and things of value. He wants to. This is what drives Ezra, and he has been working a series of mines that are in the hills just outside of Brimstone, and he happened to be working in there one day and came across Juva. She was wandering, confused, going through the mines. She wasn't sure how she got there, and so the two of them had somehow formed a bond, and they were able to learn to communicate with each other. And so the story brings us to where Ezra is going to help Juva to get back to Jargono, and so they're going to have to find a gate that's going to get them there. But he has spent much of his time in the mines, working and looking constantly for treasure and being able to sell things. His items that he has with him, of course, are his pickaxe and his canteen. He's going to be holding the lantern, and his ability here is the Eagle Eye, and so he gets to roll one extra die when scavenging, and he can scavenge each map tile one more time than is normally allowed. So this guy is going to let nothing go unturned. He's going to be looking constantly for something of value. And his personal item that he has that we drew was the Ancient Coin. And so it gives him +1 lore, and once per adventure, fully heal your health. So chances are this was something that he had come across in one of his other mining adventures, or perhaps it was something that his father had given to him, but very, very old, and he's had it since he was very, very young, so he doesn't recall exactly how he came into possession with it, but it's something that he keeps with him all the time. So this should come in useful, especially with being able to boost his lore, and then also the ability to fully heal his health, because with the 16 health, this could be something that is very, very, very valuable, especially to the Prospector. All right, finally we have Branson, the Cowboy. Now Branson had come across the Prospector in a conversation that they had in the saloon in town, and the Prospector had mentioned that he was going to be going on an adventure. It was very dangerous, and he was looking for a hired gun to come along just for some extra support and extra fighting abilities. And so Branson was looking for work and decided that he would come along with him. So he's going to be joining this party. He has over a little bit of time that he's met Juva, they kind of know each other. They are able to be friendly with each other, but it's not like Juva and Ezra. They have a bond. Branson has been accepted by Juva in this little expedition, in this posse, but Ezra has Brandon basically bought and paid for. So there is a loyalty there that Branson has to the party because there's money on the line. So, but the good thing about Branson is that he's a trick shot. He's a good shot. He's going to use this ability here, trick shooting, so he can use a grit when he causes a hit with a gun to immediately cause an additional D3 other enemies in a continuous chain starting adjacent to the target to also take a single hit from that gun. So he's going to potentially be able to damage a number of enemies in case they come across a larger horde. And of course he's going to have his pistol with him. He's got his trusty lasso and his bandana. And then he also has these rough skin gloves, which are going to give him a +1 strength, and then once per turn he can re-roll one of his melee to hit rolls. So this guy, he's not afraid of a fight. And the fact that he's got a strength now of 5, that's going to be really, really good, and it's going to play into his ability to upgrade things down the way. So anyways, those are the 3 characters that we have. And with this session now here, I just wanted to go over the characters, their abilities, set up the story, set up the narrative, and introduce things. So starting the next session, we're going to get into the gameplay itself, and I hope that you will take the time to join me as we journey into the Shadows of Brimstone and the Swamps of Death. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks. Bye-bye.